is now take this basic production theory and turn it into actually understanding how firms make decisions on how much to produce. But before we do that, I want to talk about one other concept, which is very important for thinking about production theory, and comes back to sort of these assumptions we're making, which might be a little bit unrealistic, which is the concept of returns to scale. The concept of returns to scale. Okay. So here the question is, what happens if we increase all inputs proportionally? Return to scale. By scale, I mean, what if we just double everything? Twice as much labor and twice as much capital. That's an increase in scale. It's increasing all inputs proportionally. Twice as much labor, twice as much capital. Half as much labor, half as much capital. So a change in scale is an equal increase or decrease in all inputs. Proportional, equal proportional. So what happens if we increase all inputs increase or decrease proportionally? And this is sort of an interesting case because it's like, okay, what if we just make the firm half as big? What happens? Okay? Well, the answer is it depends on the production process. Some production processes will exhibit what we call constant returns to scale. This is a convenient form. It's convenient because the way constant returns to scale works is it says that f of 2L, 2K is equal to 2 times f of L, K. That is, if it's constant, you can just pull the 2 out. Doubling the inputs leads to doubling the outputs, which equals to 2Q. I'll write here to make it. Doubling the inputs equals doubling the outputs. So if I have twice as much labor and capital, that's the same as twice producing what I had with the original labor and capital, which will get me twice the original production. Okay? That's a constant return to scale. So every time I double my firm, I get exactly twice as much stuff out. Okay? We can contrast that with increasing returns to scale, IRS, okay, which says that f of 2L, 2K is greater than 2 times f of L, K, okay, or it's greater than 2Q. Okay, that is, when I double my firm, I produce more than twice as much stuff. That'd be increasing returns to scale. Okay. On the other hand, we can also have decreasing returns to scale, which, not surprisingly, means that f of 2L, 2K is less than 2 times f of L, K, or less than 2Q. Okay? That would be decreasing returns to scale. Okay? Which is when I double my firm, I get less than twice as much stuff. So let's start with H6A. That's constant returns to scale. So here, and these are from the textbook. So here is for example, when we doubled the inputs from 100 labor and 100 capital, 200 labor, 200 capital, you doubled output. Okay? Those are constant returns to scale isoquants. The last page shows decreasing and increasing returns to scale. So for instance, in tobacco, example, decreasing returns to scale because there's only so much leaf that you have that you can produce. Okay? So here, when you double the inputs from 100 to 200, your output only goes from 100 to 142. Okay? And if you want to double to 200 units, you got to go way the heck up there on inputs. On the other hand, primary metal production is something where you can have increasing returns to scale because there's such high costs of building a plant that once it's built, you can actually, so just like I said, gee, in fact, that second digger at the hole might actually make it more productive. Once that plant's built, you know, there's one worker banging around the plant, a second worker adds a huge amount of productivity because they can specialize. Basically, increasing returns to scale is going to come from specialization. So if you build this big plant to build steel, one worker in that plant is no good because he's got to pour the steel, then run over and cool it down, etc. Once you have two, they can specialize. At three, they can specialize more. So you might think of something like that would have increasing returns to scale through specialization. And that's illustrated here, where doubling the output actually leads to more than doubling the inputs actually leads to more than double the output.